more. Got our old Suburban out here. This is a 1999 K1500 4-wheel drive. Got the power booster out on it. I figured, see how we're going to have to change it, give you a quick rundown in case somebody's never changed one before. It's not that hard to do. There's a couple little tedious things you got to deal with, but overall it's not that bad. Just be patient with it. You can handle it yourself. Save some money doing it yourself. On this model, in order to find out, these power boosters are actually, there's a couple different codes for them, and in order to find the code for the ones you have on the 1999 model in the dash, there's a sticker in there, and if you'll look for those codes through there, this one is a JB6, which is a little bit cheaper power booster. It helps us out. But anyway, you can find that code in on the sticker in the dash to find that out before you go to pick up the part, because you'll have to know that for which one you need. But we've got our new power booster right here. We just picked it up. If you'll notice right here, it does come with this vacuum line port that comes on it. So when you get ready, you can pull this one off down here. You can just unplug it right here. It won't matter. You can just hook that straight back up into that one. You have 2 bolts here, and if you'll look on the back, you have 4 bolts. Those 4 bolts will go through the firewall, and I'll show you some of that in just a second. But that's our new power booster. Set it back down here. You got to kind of be easy with these things. You don't want to manipulate this piston a lot or bend that around or anything, because there's a seal and it'll break the seal and it'll ruin the part. But what we have right here, what you'll end up doing, just right quick, you have your brake master cylinder right here. You have two lines right here. You have a line here and a line here. Those two will have to come loose in order to pull this out. Now, I've heard it said that you, in some cases, you can slip that out and not have to unhook those lines and have enough room to get it out. But you know, you don't want to bend your brake lines up. If you get a kink in those lines, you really got a mess on your hands then. So if you're lucky, you may not have to bleed the lines afterwards, unless it sucks some air in there. We'll see how that turns out when we get to that point. But you'll have to break these lines loose here, and then what you have here, where it hooks into your power booster, you have a bolt here and a bolt on the other side. That's the 2 I just showed you on the new one. So you'll have to break those loose, and you'll pull that master cylinder out of the way. And like I said, you have to pull that vacuum line off. This is a vacuum line that runs to your power booster. So that'll be what you have to do here. And I'll show you here in just a second on the inside some of the more tedious parts that have to be done under the dash. Okay, I'm going to try to show you this little tedious spot here. If you come under your dash, right here where your brake pedal is, you see mine's kind of wore off there. But if you follow that arm for that brake pedal up, right here you got your steering section. And if you look right through that gap right there, if I can get it to focus in, there's a pin. And that pin, get where you can see it. Get focus in. That piston rod that I showed you on the back of the power booster comes through the firewall, and it hooks right there. I can't get it to zoom in, but you see that white plastic polymer looking stuff, and that's actually your brake light switch. But that black part that you see right there is where the pin comes through that hooks to your pedal. Back up here a little bit, maybe I can get that way. But that pin has a little clip on it. Instead of having a nut on the end of a bolt per se, it's got a little spring clip type thing, and that clip just snaps over top of it. Once it snaps over it, it binds to it with the teeth. They kind of bite into it. I'm trying to get a good shot of it here. There it is. You can kind of see it. Anyway, there's a little clip right there, and that little clip that snaps around that pin actually has grooves on each side, and you can kind of get a screwdriver in there, and if you stick the screwdriver in between those grooves, you can kind of twist it to the left or right, and it'll spring that clip open where it'll pop off that pin. But that's basically what I was trying to show you. That's kind of the most tedious thing. We may end up on this one because you have all this other, you got a lot of brackets. Um, as you come up here, you can see there's a full bracket that goes around that, so it makes it kind of hard. You can't really get up behind it. So that gap right there is kind of what you got to deal with. But if need be, and you actually can kind of see that pin a little bit better there, but that gap's what you basically kind of got to work through to get that clip off, and then of course to get it back on. But if you look right here, you see this bolt right there and right there. That's your two nuts. You drop those nuts off, and the steering section, you can actually drop it down a little bit. There's a steel brace that goes across here, so there's only about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches of space that you get to play with, but you might can drop this steering section down a little bit and gain a little space to be able to get up in there and back to that. But that's what you're looking at. You got to get that clip off. And then of course when you go to put this thing back in, if you'll notice the way that thing sits, where that piston arm comes through the firewall, it has to be on the correct side. You don't want to bend that rod around and try to make it meet up with your pedal. So you kind of got to put it in sideways. I may show you that here when we get to that point. But this is the most tedious part. You've got to get in there and get that clip out, and then if you move the foam, if I can get up in here where you can see right there, I've moved the foam back a little bit. That rubber boot that you see is the rubber boot that goes around the power booster piston that comes through the firewall. That bolt that you see right there, there's 4 of those. You'll take those nuts off, and that'll drop your power booster on the outside. There's one there, and let's see if I can get another shot. There's one up there, and then you come around the other side. Of course, there's 2 on the other side. So anyway, this is the most tedious part, is just trying to get to these clips, get this clip off, and you may end up even tearing the clip up and having to get another one. And from my experience, you're probably going to have to go to a dealership maybe to get that, but let's see if we can get it off without messing it up. I piddled with it just a second ago, and it's fairly loose, so anyway, we'll see where it goes. That'll be the most tedious part of this job, really, having to get down here. And if you're a fat boy like me, getting under this dash ain't easy. Okay, so we got the clip off. I had to piddle with it about 20 minutes or so, I guess, but I don't know if you can see it now, but you can see that pin coming through there. That's where that clip was at. And I got the pin off, but after I got it off, it was flexed a little bit and stress cracked, and it ended up breaking. So we're probably going to have to go get another pin, another clip for that. But I want to show you right quick too. Again, that white polymer piece is your light switch, your brake light switch, and you kind of got to wonder, you know, how it's put on there and all that. Well, it's really not. Let's come around to this other side. From underneath here, you can see right there, from the other side of the steering section, you see that light switch, and you can see where the piston rod goes through there. I can wiggle it a little bit. I don't know if you can see it, but that's where that main section, right? Let's see if I can get my finger up in there. Probably not. Right there, that right at the end of my finger, you can see that black. That's that piston rod coming off that power booster. It comes out of the firewall, comes right here, and that's where that pin goes through, going that way, going left to right as my finger's moving. But that switch, it's very easy to get it out of the way. It's kind of confusing to start with, but if you come around this other side, you can see that it actually clips onto the piston rod. You see my thumb. I'm tracing that piston rod down. Well, that switch actually has a little groove in it, and it just snaps on top of that. That's all it does. Again, I don't know if you can see it very well. Right there you can see it. If you see on that side, right where you see my finger moving in the back, that thing just snaps over top of it. You just push up on it from the bottom, and it just pops right off, just like that. Now you can see it. It's that little groove. That groove just locks right onto that piston rod. So once you pick that up and move it out of the way, you can just slide it right out of the way, and that gets that switch assembly out of the way. And then of course you can take your piston rod, which you see me moving here for the power booster, and just take it right off the side too. So some of that. Okay, I just wanted to show right quick how these 4 bolts I was telling you for your power booster. One of the things I kind of saw here as I was going, that first bolt, you see it right there, up in there. Trying to get to it, I thought I had a 3/8 swivel that I could probably use, but I didn't have one. I don't know where it got to, but anyway, I'm doing it with just a regular 3/8 ratchet, and I've got a, what is that, 14, 15? It's 15 millimeter socket to get those out with. And I first started trying, of course, on the right side where you see the first bolt. Makes sense, you probably come in on this side, but you don't have enough throw to your ratchet to really do anything there. So what I found was, if you just come to the left side over here, if you can see my ratchet handle right there, I just come to the left side of your steering column, you can actually reach up from there and reach over and hit that, and you can get a lot more turns out of it that way. But anyway, I'm on the top one here, and it's pretty tight too. I'm kind of doing the same thing. It seems to be easier to come from the left side, even though you're going to the bolts on the right. Seems to be a little easier, you get a little more turn out of it, but it is a slow process. The bolts are long, and you're getting a quarter, if you're lucky, a half a turn at a time. So just be patient with it, and just keep working on them, and they'll work their way out. But I just wanted to show that on this right side it was really tight. You see I got my flashlight kind of braced up there. That's all the gap you have to deal with, and it really wasn't getting hardly any throw out of it. But if you take the ratchet to the left side and reach over from that side, you get a little more pull out of it. So just wanted to show that right quick. All right, it's next morning here. We came out here, we had everything ready to go last night. Had the bolts off the back of the power booster, and it was good to go for this morning. And so what we ended up doing was we just lined those holes up, and we end up, when you put this thing in, if you tilt it just a little to the left, if you're looking at it from this way, when that piston arm on the back of that power booster, when you want to put it in there, I really should have got a shot through the hole, made it a little bit clearer, but once you've made this point, you'll know where the top of that pedal and that rod is that sticks out on that brake pedal is anyway. But once you stick it in there, what you want to do is kind of put these 2 bolt holes, do 2 bolts on this side through the hole, kind of first, so to speak, just so it's kind of sitting a little more leaned out to the left, a little further out from the left than it is on the right. And that way, when you guide that thing through there, you don't have to flex that piston rod and mess up the seal or anything like that. And that way, once you get that thing set in there, you kind of set in there as far as you can. And with that rod, instead of sitting this way when you put it in, it'll actually be sitting like that. And then what that'll do is allow you enough space to reach up underneath and slide that into that piston rod over top of the brake pedal rod that sticks out. And it wasn't too hard to do. Just slide it up in there, and then you can put your brake switch, the plastic piece I showed earlier. You can put that piece, snap it back on, put it back on, and then you just start tightening your nuts down. Come out here and line this back up, push it back through good and solid. Make sure it seats up good against your firewall, and then start putting your nuts on. So that's where we're at right now, and I'll show you just a little bit more here. We'll be finishing up. A couple little tips I want to go across here too, in case you've not done a lot of mechanicking on your own. Whenever you're tightening down bolts on anything, it's just a general rule. I've built equipment for over 20 years, and just little tips I've picked up here and there. Been building a lot of equipment for poultry processing and just various different things that I've worked on. A couple little tips for you though. When this housing right here for your master cylinder is actually aluminum. You gotta be a little careful with aluminum. When you tighten your bolts down, never tighten one when you have more than one bolt. You know, 2, 3, 4, 6, whatever. Never tighten one side all the way down without working them as a set. Same thing applies just like when you're changing a tire. It's the same thing. You never want to tighten one bolt down completely and not work them in succession as you go around. You want to do them a little at a time, because what will happen is if you tighten one down too far and then your other one hasn't been tightened down pretty similar, then you've got this too tight on one side. Say on this, you'll have it too tight on one side, and you'll be stressing the other side because this is so tight on this side. So you just kind of tighten them as you go. Just take your time and work them. Once you get them down kind of good and tight, then you can kind of start putting a little more torque on them. But you just don't want to tighten one down over the other ones. You want to do them a little at a time. Just work your way around, just whatever you're working on in the vehicle, because it will stress them, it will crack them, it'll bust the housing off, crack it. Aluminum especially, being a softer metal, it'll crack on you. So that's one thing you want to pay attention to doing. Another thing on the master cylinder here, just again in case you haven't done a lot of mechanicking, the master cylinder, your brake fluid reservoir, if you notice, is plastic. Okay, so when you're tightening these bolts down, you know, in here with this ratchet, you don't want to get in here with this ratchet and beat that thing up and put a lot of stress on that. When you take the master cylinder off, you don't want to put any stress on that. This is actually has seals, has little O-rings on the inside here, and you know, it's easy to pop that thing off. And once it's popped off, then you know you kind of got a mess on your hands there too. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of go across that too. You know, anytime you're tightening bolts, you know, again, this is aluminum, especially with aluminum, but anything really. If you have more than one bolt, succession of bolts to have to go through, you know, never tighten one down real tight and then go to the next one, because you'll stress the piece and possibly crack it or break it, and then you're looking at another part. So just want to say that right quick. All right, so we got her in, new power booster. We ended up had a little trouble with these. Sometimes these can be a pain in the rear end. They've got enough tension on them that when you try to line them back up, sometimes they don't want to go directly in at a perfect 90 degree like you want them to. So sometimes you got to, we pulled the master cylinder back loose a little bit to allow us a little bit. And the thing is, you don't want to kink these brake lines up, like I said earlier. You want to try to keep these guys in good shape. If you bend them too much, trying to get them in there, you get a kink in them. These are really small lines too, so it wouldn't take much to kink those. You kind of got to be careful with that. But we got them in there, and then tighten it back up. Don't forget to put your bracket back on. It holds your holds all these lines up off of your steering column. You got to make sure you get those back in there. Got a little brake fluid overflowed there where we topped off our reservoir, but overall wasn't too bad. Overall time, probably, I don't know, maybe about 3 hours, I guess, total time.